The first time he'd seen it, he didn't think it was a bruise on his son's arm. However, when he started figuring out what it really was and how it got there, everything changed. Of course, the moment he realized what exactly was going on, he was distraught. Why is the school bullying their students so terribly? He decided he had to stand up for his son and took a photo to show others. Whoever thought this was a good idea should take responsibility for what happened to this boy. Hello, wonderful people. I'm Jamie Buck from WonderBot. And here is what this lunch lady did to Cayden made his parents furious. Before we begin, make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos. Tara Chavez did her proper research on schools in the area of Phoenix before taking her son to Desert Cove Elementary School. Before making that decision, she thought about everything else, but it wasn't something she took lightly. Along with other things to keep in mind, she needed to consider things like cost and class size. After all, her number one priority was the health and well-being of her son. She was a sweet child and she needed to make sure she would be treated well. Tara went to the school multiple times to attend open days. She thought it would be good for her son to go to Desert Cove Elementary School, and so she finalized all the legal documents that she needed and enrolled her son. She didn't have a way of knowing that it was a decision she would continue to lament after it had been said and done. This mother didn't think that it would have escalated into public outrage. Lots of parents decided to take action when they heard about her story. It was almost as if everything was turning out well after an entire term at Desert Cove Elementary School. This made her husband feel confident that Cayden was doing well in school and that school was the right fit for him. The philosophy of the school got the parents' attention, so they were convinced that it was a good choice for their little son. Other than that, their son liked and respected his teachers. However, soon it became clear to them that their son was dealing with a serious problem. Another day passed and Tara made it to her school to pick up Cayden. She immediately noticed something was off when she saw him. What was the problem? She couldn't remember any of it or think of what happened. Automatically, Tara assumed it must have been one of his fellow students or even the teacher. Maybe they were tormenting her son. She also realized that her son might just be a victim of bullying by this point. She took control of the situation and looked for a way to change his mood for the better. So Tara asked her son how his day went. Just like another parent, this mother was eager to find out the root of the problem to fix it. Cayden responded with a curt, "Fine," and kept his eyes on the window of the car staring out into the distance. Tara politely asked him if something happened at school. Even then, he refused to say anything else. By this point, it was obvious he didn't want to talk about what was bothering him. And so, Tara decided it would be best not to force him to talk about it when he clearly didn't want to. She gave him a little space, and the two agreed to talk about it more when they got home. From there, she caught a glimpse of a blue mark on his arm. She craned her neck and tried getting a better look at her son's arm. For a split second, she thought it was just some dirt. Then she looked closer, however. She realized that wasn't the case at all. It was something else. Tara could only think of the possibility that that mark was connected to the reason her son was in a bad mood that day. All the same, she had to understand the whole story, not just a small part. As they say, a mother's instinct is always correct. This mom had a hint as to what was going on, but she wanted the full picture before she got home with her son. She had to keep her eyes on the road until they got home to their house. What would she do next? Despite the fact that she didn't bring it up again, Tara's knuckles turned white from her tight grip on the wheel. She did this out of frustration. She hated seeing her son so upset. You can know how troubled the person behind all this would be. No one wants to mess with Tara. As soon as they got home, Cayden went straight to his bed. Still, Tara promised he couldn't hide out without telling her the whole story. After that, she called her husband, took a chair out, and asked her son to sit down with them. Her husband, Mark, pulled up his son's jacket to take a look at what was on his arm. At first, he thought it was some kind of blister. However, it turned out to be ink. Did he write something on his arm? No, it had to be something else. Cayden had 2 words written on his arm. In bold blue letters, the words said, "lunch money." Why was this marked on the kid's arm? Who could have done such a thing, especially for such a little boy? After that, Cayden told him the lunch lady put those words on his arm. It seems like she tried embarrassing the little boy in front of the entire classroom. The more the parents heard about the story, the more upset they became. I asked if the lunch lady gave him a choice, and he said, "No, she just grabbed my wrist and put the stamp on." When she was asking her son these questions, she was fighting back tears. She was so hurt that her son was treated this way in front of everyone. While Cayden still had enough money for his food, the lunch money on his account was running low. When Tara checked the account, there was still 75 cents in there. She was furious. Checking online, she looked into the matter further. Mark took a picture of the stamp and decided to post it online for people to see. He was screaming and crying the entire time, the mother explained. He was humiliated. Didn't even want me to take a picture of it. Maybe the most concerning thing about this was the fact that this boy had been humiliated at school in front of everyone. Of course, it made him feel bad, but he had done plenty of work on his self-esteem. For the most part, the school would send an alert to the parents by mail when the lunch money account would be running low. Has the school ever had a problem with this phenomenon? Naturally, it wasn't long before Mark's post went viral all over the world. Well, we do live in a digital age. Eventually, the post got hundreds of views and shares. It was spreading like wildfire all over the internet. Practically all the parents who saw the post were supportive of the family and stood behind them. Tara was pleased to see that her family were not alone. One of her friends at the school, "Like y'all couldn't send a note?" She kept on saying, "Y'all couldn't think for 2 seconds about the numerous references of branding someone as a stigma?" If you ask us, she made a very good point. Sending a note is a much more logical thing to do in this case. What kind of twisted person holds a child's arm and applies a big block-lettered stamp in black ink to their arm? Another commenter said, the majority of people who read the story said the stamp was unacceptable. Another parent replied with an absolutely furious message saying, if a kid's parents don't have the money to deposit to the child's account, do they just keep stamping the child every day? Seriously. Regardless of what the school would have to say on the matter, it wasn't long before they responded to all the negative attention they were getting. Tara received an email from the school rather quickly. What would they say? Stacy Orset, the principal of Desert Cove Elementary School, said that the staff had no intention of shaming children with reminder stamps publicly. She also described in detail to Tara that the cafeteria workers were supposed to ask them if they want a stamp or a reminder slip. Still, Tara wasn't happy with the explanation the school gave her. Every other parent who was looking into the story or reading about it decided that it would be right to abolish the reminder stamps. It wasn't right to do. After that, the school district put out a public statement about the incident. Becky Kelbaugh, the Paradise Valley Unified School District spokeswoman, said, "It was never the intention of Desert Cove Elementary School administration and staff to embarrass any student by using the stamp." She continued by saying, "Students were given a choice between a letter or reminder stamp. Going forward, Desert Cove Elementary School will send a letter before going home to notify the parents of low lunch balances." In addition to that, she told the Phoenix New-Times that the elementary school would immediately stop using the reminder stamps. We're happy to hear that this won't be done anymore from this point on. With that said, the fact is that it isn't the first time this happened. Joe Bivens was a son who's in 3rd grade and attends the Gardendale Elementary School. Something very similar happened to him and his family not too long before the unfortunate incident. The little boy came home one day with something similar on his back. What happened this time? The dad said they didn't think about it much at first. "I thought it was a good job stamp," he said, explaining his indifference. Realizing what stamp it really was, he saw the words, "I need lunch money." John was surprised. John and his wife gave their kid lunches for school every day, but they let him buy a snack at the cafeteria every now and again. Something genuinely infuriated John. Wait till you see what it was that caused this reaction. "They herd these kids like cattle," the father said angrily. His son was branded by the school. He said that when you start stamping a message on a child's body instead of calling, it's just not okay. He kept talking, explaining his opinion in a question and answer, saying that it's a form of bullying and shaming the kids. Wouldn't you say that it would be too hard to enforce a branding system in cafeterias? Desert Cove is generally an affluent school. Only 32% of the kids are qualified to apply for free or low-cost meals there, and so it can be possible to assume that singling out students with low account balances could be quite traumatic for them. It's not an excuse for the way lunch shaming can lead students to miss meals altogether. This in turn reduces their academic success and also makes them more likely to repeat a degree or need guidance in mental health. Eventually, Desert Cove Elementary School released a message that said it was never the intention of administration and staff to embarrass any student by using the stamp. They've been very apologetic about the whole ordeal. Despite the fact that it was a device that's been in use for many years, they announced that from that moment on, the school would avoid using the stamping method. Instead, they would interact with the parents themselves.